Hello, everybody, and welcome into week 7 of Weekly Roundup. Um, Another big week in the SFA. We are actually officially halfway through season 10. I know time just absolutely flies when we're doing these seasons. So next stage is the playoff committee, which we will be selecting in week 10. If you're interested in being on the playoff committee, please DM me and then I can put you in that random drawing. But let's go through week 7. So one of the biggest results of the week was Northwestern, who was ranked number 25, upsetting number 4 Minnesota. Northwestern, who a week ago took Ohio State to double OT, proved they're for real this week for sure. And as you can see, they've already jumped up to number 11. They had their way with Minnesota on the road. Um, ECU, this was a tight game at halftime, and then we exploded in the second half. But oddly enough, once again, Heimlich Heisenberg did not get a touchdown. Boston College actually kept this a little closer than you'd think against UNC, who's had a really bad year. And once again, Buffalo kind of dominates a MAC team, so they could be a dark horse to win the MAC. Baylor continues their normal domination of the Big 12, beating Missouri. Clemson gets back over 300 or over 500 with their third conference win. So, despite two early losses, they could easily still win their division. Iowa State won a. This is a big comeback win after a very disappointing game day. And Kansas almost took out Nebraska, but Nebraska held on here to stay undefeated. Tennessee took care of business. Arizona State, close one with Stanford. It wasn't really like a game-winning field goal or anything, but still impressive for ASU, who normally stumbles out of the gate. Domination from Notre Dame. Cal beats BYU. TCU, hopefully they do this tomorrow in real life, winning 47-35 over an opponent. OT game here for Nevada, and a game that has pretty much defined the MAC for the last 5 years. Miami, Ohio wins this round against Toledo. Mid-Tennessee State takes care of business. They are still undefeated. A nice little smacking by Purdue. A really disgusting game here, 13 total points, and Syracuse actually lost. They were ranked. Virginia, surprising win. This was another big win. Kentucky gets a convincing win over LSU, who is now definitely on the hot seat. Alabama took care of Georgia. A big win for San Diego State. They still run the Mountain West. Western Michigan improves to 5-0. That's impressive. Louisiana still taking care of business. Illinois upsets Penn State. This is a big upset in the Sun Belt. Undefeated FIU lost to winless UAB. Wyoming coach got his first win. Nice job. Rematch of the Conference USA Championship last year. Memphis wins it once again, 2 in a row. Tulane is pissed. Arkansas gets a big win. Georgia Southern wins a shootout. The Washington still gets a win, and then Ohio State just lays a licking on Oregon. This one wasn't even close. Let's see. And then game day here. This score is a lot closer than you'd think. It was 24-0. Midway through the fourth, we thought we were going to get our first ever shutout on game day, but Florida State did battle back. They made it interesting until the end. Florida just destroys Oklahoma. Oklahoma has completely fallen off. Arizona gets another win. And Army beats Navy. So not really the craziest week. But let's take a look at how the polls shook out. I know you guys just saw it, but Florida, Ohio State's back up to 2. Tennessee, I think, was overranked last week. Ohio State, Baylor. Notre Dame jumps up 7. This one was super questionable because Mississippi State isn't really that great of a team. Winning by 50 isn't all that impressive. And they're a 1 loss, so it's kind of weird to me how they jumped above Boston College or Nebraska. But ECU somehow as well, it gets ranked above Boston College and Nebraska, but they are definitely making their way up. They'll make it to 3 and 4 if they continue this trend. Michigan State stays pat at 10 on the bye. Northwestern, after that huge win and impressive showing against Ohio State, jumps up to 11. Alabama back up to 12. Texas A&M on the bye still moved up. Same with Colorado. Louisiana Tech dropped. That's kind of what you expect for a G5 without a game. California moves up. Arizona moves up a lot despite a not really the most convincing win over Washington State. I think that was just some bias in the polls. Minnesota does stay ranked though with 2 losses. Illinois jumps into the poll after beating Penn State. Mid-Tennessee State jumps in. Utah, Houston stays. Georgia somehow stays ranked with 3 losses. And the Western Michigan gets in. And Arizona State gets back in as well. And Kansas just missed. Alright, so now let's take a look at the players of the week. So Jack Dingle, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 4 tackles for loss. Huge day for him in Cincinnati. And then, my God, 350 receiving yards and 3 TDs for Sawyer Raccinelli. Just a ridiculous stat line there. Jacob Rodriguez, the Virginia schools have kind of been making some noise this season. And then 3 sacks for Travis Golden. Evan Pryor with the injury to Mayan Williams had 300 total yards and a few TDs. Gardner Wallace forced fumble and an interception. Shaq Jenkins, SFA player, fumble forced and a fumble recovery. And then Juwan Harvey, another SFA player, 4 total TDs, 200 total yards. Big game for him. And the American, Bo Wallace, my quarterback, 5 total TDs, as we took care of Southern Miss. Not much going here, just a few fumbles, And then Notre Dame, they had a big game, 5 touchdowns. Avion Smith, 5 total TDs for the quarterback. And 2 forced fumbles and an interception and a loss for NIU. Another wacky game, 12 receptions, 160 yards, and 3 TDs for a tight end, Cornelius Sanders. And then Florida's quarterback had another big day. Sean Hickman forced fumble and an interception. And then 2 SFA players here as well. 6 total touchdowns for Daddy Jeff Driscoll. And Kyle Brookins, the freshman. 2 tackles for loss, a sack, and a forced fumble as well. Alright, let's go now take a look at the stat leaders. So Conover still leads, and then Cal's quarterback Lou Ishire and Braxton Miller have been falling off a little bit after some rough games. Rocket Sanders for Arkansas, and Goodwin is falling off as well. Binks is still there at number 6, even after the bye. Boozler, Mike Evans, and Rashad Perryman all fall off a little bit. They're still in heavy contention for that top spot, though. Tackle-wise, all SFA teams. No SFA players, though. Sack leaders. Nothing crazy to note here. 6.5 is about what you'd expect halfway through. Sue Award for my team. He has 2 different games with 3 sacks. So, very hot and cold performances. And now we have 2 guys at 6 interceptions. So, Reed and Diza Fernandez. Huffman, which is a great name. And then a SFA team. Actually, Iowa and Colorado are both SFA teams as well, so nothing too crazy there. And then the kicking leaders, Roberto Aguayo, obviously still standing up at the top. And now into the Heisman watch, and on a bye, Binks McBurnfinger does fall out of the top spot for Johnny Manziel. Jalen Wright still up there despite having a mediocre performance with 142 yards and a touchdown. CJ Stroud actually gets back up in here after a 2 total TD day at Oregon. And Marcus Davis gets in. He was on the outside looking in last week. So only 2 SFA players, or 3 SFA players now, but 3 SFA teams as well. So we'll see how that changes once Binks McBurnfinger gets back onto the field. And then let's take a look before we go over injuries at the toughest places to play, see if anything crazy changed here. Ohio State brings it up to 10 wins in a row at home. Tennessee's at 9. Miami, Ohio is at 9. MTSU's 6. That's a full season now. Ole Miss 5. FAU 5. And a few at 4. I'm coming up there at 4. And then the most losses in a row at home, Texas, Virginia Tech, pretty much all the teams that are just in poverty in our world here. And then the Sickos game of the week, UNC and Georgia Tech, both home losing streaks, so that could potentially end this week for UNC. We will see. And finally, let's take a look at the injury report this week. It was actually dominated by minor injuries, which is what you like to see, honestly. But the first one is a doozy. Teddy Bridgewater, once again, we go back to Baylor. He has some back spasms, and while it's only 1 week, this could be more time, as if he gets that questionable tag, back spasms could keep him out, maybe a month. But the true 5-star freshman, Colt Brennan, will start against TCU this week for Baylor. But still, definitely, they've had some terrible injury luck. The second team I want to go over here is Georgia, actually. So Justin Robinson, their top senior, they're already at 3 losses, and now he picks up a hip pointer, and he's going to be out. This Georgia team is crumbling fast. A team that looked like they were going to be winning championships here with Brock Vandagriff. He declares, and then all of a sudden now you have 3 losses at the halfway point of the season. So this team really needs to take a hard look at themselves, and they pretty much have to win out the rest of the year to have a chance at the playoff. And then another injury here that I want to go over is an SFA one with our dear friends down south at San Diego State. Tyson Hookah, one of the best linebackers in the country, he did strain a pec, and that's going to keep him out the better part of 3 weeks. Hopefully this doesn't impact the great defense they've been playing. Luckily, they are already into Mountain West play, so I don't expect this to really be all that impactful, but it's definitely still a tough pill to swallow. And then the final injury I want to go over is Iowa, one of our teams. Connor Colby, your right guard, a 90+ overall, is out for the season with a foot fracture. That's a tough one. Especially a senior. But luckily at Iowa, they kind of breed these types of linemen, so I'm sure they have next man up mentality here. So I don't really expect them to be in any sort of rush shape, but definitely watch out for that. And as far as injuries, I think that's really it on the most notable ones. We do have a few coaches lose some players like Louisiana, Kansas, Arkansas State, and Northern Illinois. But they really weren't all that impactful. And finally, on the weekly roundup, I just want to quickly preview this week's game of the week, which will be game day. I think this is one of the first games this season that I've been truly excited for on game day. We got Colorado, number 14 in the country, against Nebraska and the Heisman favorite, Johnny Manziel. No one at the beginning of the season thought Nebraska would be anywhere close to this good, but here we are. This is what Nebraska's done so far. Yes, they have 2 FCS wins, but 2 big wins over Kansas and Kansas State. And if you look at the rest of the schedule, if they get past Colorado, you got Iowa State, which will be a tough game because it's at Jack Trice, but Mizzou, West Virginia, TCU, and Iowa. So not really anything in this last month. So these next 2 weeks are going to really define Nebraska's season for sure. But that's going to wrap it up for another weekly roundup. Once again, thank you for watching. If there's ever something that you want me to cover in one of these videos, let me know, either in the comments or DM me. And if you want to join the SFA, links are in the description. Thank you guys for watching.